How's it going, everybody? It's Pilot Flame, and we are back with another FPL video, and today we're going to be looking at the free hit chip and how I would use it going into Game Week 33. So without further ado, let's get into the video. So we're going to start off by looking at the team value. So currently I have 105 million. I have none left in the bank when doing this free hit team. And we're going to be going with specifically a 3-5-2 in this scenario. I think there's so much value in midfield. I think the majority of midfielders that are anywhere from 8 to 10.5 million are just super stacked. You can get a crazy amount of value out of them, and the forwards are similarly priced as well. They're going to be in that 8 to 10.5 million mark, with obviously the exception of Kevin De Bruyne in midfield as an example, because he's 10.7. But they just gain so much value. They're so point heavy in terms of what they can get you, and it's just an overall balanced team in terms of the team spread that we have going for this draft. First up, we can start off with the goalkeeper. Now, I've gone with Dubravka here. He has a great fixture for a free hit in West Ham at home. West Ham have not looked great at all. Newcastle are quite good defensively, even in their game today versus City. They kind of kept them out for the longest time, apart from obviously the penalty earlier on in the game, but they kind of warded City off quite nicely. West Ham obviously aren't going to be as smooth in attack and are not going to be as solid defensively, and I think Dubravka could be quite good at racking up those save points. As for the backup goalkeeper, we just have a 3.9 million dud. It can be any 3.9 million goalkeeper on your bench. And as for the bench kind of position players that were just kind of hoping that they don't actually come on because we don't really want to use them. We have Nketiah from Arsenal. He has a away fixture versus Wolves. He's just 4.4. Cheap playing striker that's probably going to see minutes if he does have to come on. Same with Lascelles. Lascelles obviously has a great fixture versus West Ham at home as well. So if he does come on, you can have him on your bench. And then lastly, we just have a non-playing 3.9 defender. I've just gone with the Norwich defender who has a home fixture versus Brighton. He's not going to play, but he's just a 3.9 defender, kind of just to fill up the bench. Next off, we have the defense, and this is kind of how the free hit team is balanced around. We have Aaron Wan-Bissaka, who obviously has a home fixture versus Bournemouth, who's currently in my team. This could also easily be Harry Maguire if you plan on going for the likes of Bruno Fernandes, who is probably going to start as well, even though he played a significant amount of minutes in the FA Cup fixture versus Norwich. But I feel that Aaron Wan-Bissaka is a better fit just because I have him in my team, and it would just be more of a sideways move now that he's got an assist, and you kind of think that maybe Maguire is going to get the goal or assist or something like that after the fact. I think he's going to bring a little bit more value overall in the remaining fixtures, especially if he improves on his crossing. Next, we have Virgil van Dijk. Now, this is a bit of an interesting one because you would think the likes of Trent Alexander-Arnold or even Robertson would be a better pick, but you have to kind of think, is Klopp going to go for the records? And who's going to be the most stable in that? So if they're up 3-0 in halftime, he can easily take off Trent, take off Salah, take off Mane, and just bring on more of the youngsters, the likes of Curtis Jones and the lot, and just, kind of be a bit more defensive and just say 3-0 is good enough for us. They just need to win games for the most part to get the majority of the records, because if they just keep winning, then their points total won't go down. It'll just keep going up. It'll go past 100, and there'll be happy days for them. And I think Van Dijk is kind of the key to allow him to make those substitutions, mainly because he's the stable force along with Alisson in the back five, with the back four and the goalkeeper combined. And I just think that leadership will allow for youngsters to come in and kind of grow into it, and potentially, if they have enough appearances, get the Premier League medal. And then lastly, for the more expensive defender, we have Alonso. He's got a home fixture against Watford. He looked pretty good versus Man City, even though he did pick up a yellow. Obviously, kind of managing Riyad Mahrez is a very difficult task, especially when he doesn't have the pace to kind of deal with it. But Riyad Mahrez was somewhat quiet throughout the game. And we obviously know that Alonso against, struggling teams such as Watford, he could be the one that kind of gets in the box, gets in their face, gets shots off, and he's going to do quite well for himself. You can easily also modify this formation to a 4-4-2 as well. If we know the likes of Joe Gomez is going to play, we can swap him in for Lascelles and downgrade one of our cheaper midfielders down to the likes of Guendouzi and play a 4-4-2. You can do a bunch of different things with it. You can even bump maybe Van Dijk up to the likes of Trent and play the likes of Lascelles. If you downgrade the midfielder, there's a bunch of different ways ways you can kind of spin it. But overall, I think these three are kind of the ones you're going to be looking at. A Man United defender, some type of Liverpool defender, and Alonso or Azpilicueta is even another choice if you want to go for a slightly cheaper Chelsea defensive option. Moving on to the midfield, this is where the majority of our funds are going to go. This is where we have most of our value. And for starters, we have our value and budget midfielder in the 5 million bracket in St. Maximin. He has a fantastic fixture versus West Ham. He's going to be a lot more productive than he was in the FA Cup game he had versus Manchester City, because West Ham's going to be a lot more open. He's going to be a lot more involved in the attack. They really didn't have one. Their game plan was basically hope they get the penalties and see what goes from there. But I think he's going to be very hard to deal with down that right hand side. He's going to flip on the various different flanks, right hand side, left hand side. It doesn't really matter. Him and Almiron, if they both start, are kind of going to go back and forth. And I feel he's a very good budget asset there. Moving on to the more expensive players, obviously we still have Mohamed Salah. This could also be Sadio Mane, depending on who you still may have from the Liverpool offensive side of things. I find Salah's a lot better because obviously with James Milner out injured, he's the one that's going to be taking penalties. He tends to take more shots than Mane, but that also reduces his BPS points as well. So it's kind of a trade-off there. Do I pay a little bit extra for someone who's going to take more shots and get more chances, or do I pay a little bit less for somebody who may be more in line to get bonus points at the end of the game? Then we also have Martial, comes in at a cool 8.2 million. He's gone up a couple of times since he's had his hat trick, and is obviously a fantastic asset being mispositioned in the midfield, and has a great fixture against a potential relegation side at home to Bournemouth. So I think he's a fantastic asset. This could also be Bruno Fernandes as well, depending on your budget. I just feel that with him being the focal point in the attack, he just seems the most dangerous out of all the United assets. Now, I wish I could bring him in. I'm still kind of considering it, maybe, and then kind of wait on the City assets maybe one more week. I'm not too sure, but I think it may be kind of a sideways move because I currently have Pogba in my team, and it may be something to where I kind of just want to see a little bit extra, maybe get one more game of data to kind of see how things go when they play Brighton as well. Maybe might not bring him into the Bournemouth game, maybe later on. And then on to the City midfielders, we have Riyad Mahrez and Kevin De Bruyne. Kevin De Bruyne is obviously their best player by far, and their fixture versus Southampton should be quite easy for them. Although Danny Ings is something to kind of worry about, so maybe clean sheet points and not something I would expect in this game. However, I think Kevin De Bruyne and Riyad Mahrez are a good pairing in terms of a more budget. I say budget, he's 8.5 million, Riyad Mahrez in midfield, and then the more expensive in Kevin De Bruyne. I think Sterling may be too much of a rotation risk with the likes of Bernardo Silva, and I think that Mahrez has his position kind of nailed down since Sané's kind of, the news has come out that he's going to be leaving. So Sterling is going to basically be their left winger, most likely could be Bernardo, could be Foden, and then Riyad Mahrez kind of holds the right hand side, as he's started in every game that City's basically played since the restart. So I think he's just fantastic. And then Kevin De Bruyne is just a point monster. He's ridiculous. He's on penalties. He takes free kicks. His free kick that he scored the other night versus Chelsea was absolutely fantastic. And I just think that those two are probably the best pairing in midfield for Manchester City. And lastly, moving on to the forward line. This one's pretty straightforward, especially if we know that Jesus is going to start. Obviously, with Aguero out, that chance obviously increases greatly. We saw that Jesus in the first game that Aguero was ruled out, he started on the bench and they played Raheem Sterling as a false nine. That obviously didn't go too well, and Jesus was eventually brought on versus Chelsea, but to no avail as they ended up losing that game 2-1. So I think Jesus is probably going to start up front. He seems eager. He's the type of striker that if he comes off the field, even though his team won, he hasn't scored. He's just kind of upset, and he kind of strives to score. So that kind of hunger is quite good, and he's going to need that, especially versus Southampton, who have been in pretty good form as of the restart. And then we have Marcus Rashford. He's got 2 assists in their last game in the 3-0 victory over Sheffield United. Came on versus Norwich, and he's starting to get his sharpness back. I see that he's still kind of a bit hit or miss when it comes to when he should shoot or when he should try to dribble past the player. But I think that will come with time. I think Bournemouth's defense is bad enough to whereas they'll give him enough space to whereas even if he's not at full peak form of Rashford, he'll still be able to do some damage. And I think he's just one goal away from having a massive hole, and I'm kind of scared of not having him on my team at the moment. I have Bruno Fernandes and Pogba in the midfield, as mentioned, along with Wan-Bissaka. So I think he could be a fantastic free hit asset at home versus Bournemouth. And then lastly, like we mentioned before, we just having Nketiah on the bench. We knew he's going to get some minutes for the game versus Wolves. But hopefully he doesn't have to come on in place of one of our starters. That's going to do it for this one. Hope you all enjoyed it. Make sure to leave a comment down below as to some players that you think I should bring in on my free hit team if I choose to use it. Or maybe some people who are on the free hit that can put their teams down in the comments below. And then we can kind of check them out and kind of discuss it. We like to keep the chat interactive. Make sure to like the video if you enjoyed it. Make sure to subscribe to the channel if you're new. Make sure to turn those notification bells on so you can get the latest content when it is readily available. Also, make sure to give us a follow over on Twitch and Twitter. It's PilotFlame226 on those platform so you can see when we do our game week discussions as well as when we post those streams as well as the YouTube videos. Like I said, I hope you all enjoyed it. Hope you all had a fantastic weekend, and until the next one, take care.